Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast on the channel here today, but not a live edition for this one. We are here at the Dover International Raceway for the 13th race of the NASCAR Cup Series season already. That will mark the halfway point of the regular season for NASCAR here today, and we'll see if we keep that trend of different winners going as well. Remember, 10 different drivers have already won this season in 12 different races, with only driver winning more than one race being Martin Truex Jr., who has already won 3 times this year, including last week at Darlington in dominant fashion as well, winning both stages and the race. Taking through today's fantasy lineup, or at least part of my lineup, with the must-haves, the don't-haves, and the sleepers, as we usually do on the channel. But first and foremost, we have to go over the starting lineup for today's race. Starting lineup, of course, last week's winner, Martin Truex Jr., will be starting on the pole, virtue of the random draw. Points leader, Denny Hamlin, will be starting outside pole in second. Row 2, all Hendrick Motorsports, both with one win this season, William Byron and Kyle Larson. In row number 3, it'll be Kevin Harvick searching for his first win of the year, Kyle Busch starting outside of him. Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, a couple of young guns in row number 4. Row number 5, Joey Logano and Chris Buescher will round out the top 10. Of the guys starting inside the top 10, to maybe look out for throughout today's race as far as foreshadowing goes, of course, Martin Truex Jr. We know he got his first career win here. He's very good at Dover, and I'll have more stats on that a little bit later. William Byron coming into the day. Also look out for him because he has finished in the top 10 straight races. He's the youngest driver to do so coming into this race today as well. Further back, maybe outside the top 10, Tyler Reddick. He's on a little bit of a hot streak with RCR as far as his equipment goes. Kansas Darlington had very fast race cars. Another 750 track, just like it was at Darlington last week. And it's another track of a mile and longer with the 750 track. So look out for maybe Tyler Reddick to surprise people today. Starting further back in the field, we have Eric Almirola, Cole Custer. We'll see how they bounce back. Almirola has finished in the top 10 in 2 of the last 4 races here. Not a big sample size, I know, but still, Eric Almirola, he is in Stewart-Haas Racing Equipment. They have been faster on the 750 tracks so far this season as well compared to the 550 tracks, so that could be something there. And same goes for Cole Custer. Chase Briscoe, who is starting a little bit further back, outside the top 10 at least. Briscoe, just like that. He ran well last week at Darlington on the 750 track. Maybe things are starting to go forward for the rookie Briscoe. So we're going to start today's video off with going through some don't-haves for today's race. Now, I've got 3, maybe even 4 drivers that you can say can be don't-haves for today's race. Simply drivers that you should not put in your fantasy lineup for the start of the race today, as well as drivers that will definitely not be in my fantasy lineup. And first, I think we have to start off with Joe Gibbs Racing, Christopher Bell. Going out on the limb a little bit with this one. Usually, I don't really talk about the younger drivers too much for both the don't-haves and the must-haves, simply because there's not a huge sample size in the Cup Series for him. Bell, this is his second year. Last year with the Levine Family Racing. First year with Joe Gibbs Racing. Obviously better equipment, and he's already proven better. He's got a win this season. He's got 5 top 10s, which is only 2 less of top 10s than what he had all of last season with Levine Family Racing, so he should very well beat that. And he's currently sitting 11th in the point standings coming into today's race as well. Didn't have a strong run last week at Darlington. That doesn't really play too much of a factor into this, but what does is that he has finished 22nd and 27th in both the races last year at Dover. Again, I know Joe Gibbs Racing equipment is a little bit better, a little leery on that, plus the last race in the Xfinity Series that Christopher Bell had back in 2019, he finished outside the top 10 as well. I know he had good success there before that, winning the 2 races prior, but going to go out on the limb a little bit. I think Bell could have a good day, but he is a don't-have simply because he has not proven himself in the Cup Series at this racetrack. I think it's a little bit too much of a risk. There are a lot far better drivers out there that you could take. Matt DiBenedetto is another guy on the list. We know Matty D to run very good at the 750 horsepower racetracks. The difference between this track and other tracks is he doesn't have as much success. He, although has 1 top 10 with Levine Family Racing in 2019 in the 95 car, he finished 7th place in the second Dover race, the playoff race at that time. But the problem is that he has finished 17th, 20th, and 27th in the other 3 races with decent to good equipment. I know, again, Wood Brothers, not really that top-tier team. They're like a B-level team. Levine Family Racing, when they had that, affiliation with Joe Gibbs Racing, that kind of helped as well. But and he did get a top 10 there. It's just not good enough. Again, only 1 in the last 4 races. Definitely not something to scoff about. It seems like the Benedetto has been on the upward trend lately, but it's been mostly on the 550 tracks and the super speedways. Darlington last week, he didn't contend as much as I thought he was going to. At least I thought he had a good chance at a top 10. He had good success there in the past, but that was with the 550 package. So I think that it's starting to play more into his wheelhouse. The only 750 tracks he seems to run well at now is road courses in Bristol consistently. That isn't on dirt at least. So don't put Matt Benedetto in your lineup. It's a little bit too much of a risk. Another driver is Brad Keselowski. Yes, don't put Brad Keselowski in your lineup. This is the first and only big name, really, that I have in the don't haves list. Keselowski only has 4 top 10s in the last 8 Dover races and hasn't finished better than 8th in the last 5 Dover starts. 8th and 10th were the 2 races he finished in the top 10 in the last 5 races. He finished outside the top 10 in both races in 2019 and both races in 2017. So, again, a risky pick there for Brad Keselowski. He hasn't been the most consistent this year. Plus, Jeremy Bolins is also out due to COVID for the 2nd straight week. That's going to hinder Keselowski's progress on top of the fact he doesn't have a great track record here at Dover. So I wouldn't put Brad Keselowski in your lineup as well. Next, we go into the sleeper picks for this one. Only have 2 sleeper picks for this week, but I have the stats to back it up as usual. We're going to start off with Hendrick Motorsports' Alex Bowman in the number 48 team. They've had a very inconsistent year this year. Yes, they did get a win at Richmond to lock themselves into the playoffs, but they're currently sitting 13th on the point standings right now, so it's very hit or miss. Bowman could be a risky start, but the reason why he is a sleeper is because he's finished in the top 5 3 of the last 4 Dover races. Last year in the 2nd race of the Dover doubleheader in August, he did not finish inside the top 10, actually finished outside the top 20, but the 3 prior races with the 750 horsepower package, he did end up finishing inside the top 5 and contended for a win in a couple of those, leading a decent amount of laps. So Alex Bowman, I'm high on his radar today. I don't have too high of expectations. I don't think he's going to win, but considering how well him and that team has ran on the 750 tracks this year, winning at Richmond, which was the last 750 track that was a mile or less in length, look out for Alex Bowman to maybe spark inside the top 10 today. That's my expectations for him, at least, is I think Alex Bowman will get a top 10. If he does that, he's a solid pick for a sleeper pick, at least, in your fantasy lineup. Maybe a garage driver or one of those drivers on your 4 or 5 slot. Another driver who could be good for that as well is Ross Chastain in the number 42 car for Chip Ganassi Racing. Chastain finished 2nd and 3rd in both Xfinity Series races last year with Colleague Racing at Dover in the doubleheader, so he had a lot of success there. He led some laps in both races as well. Yeah, I know that's the Xfinity Series, and it translates a little bit different to the Cup Series, but the fact that there's low downforce with the Xfinity cars, there's low downforce, just a little bit more horsepower with the 750 tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series, I think that could play into his wheelhouse. He ran very well at Darlington last week with a 750 horsepower package, and the great thing about that is that it looked like he was going to get a top 10. He was running far better than his fellow teammate Kurt Busch, who I thought was actually going to compete more for a top 10 than what I thought Chastain was. Chastain also looked fast at Kansas, so as far as momentum goes, I know that's a 550 track, but the momentum side of things has got to be that 42 team versus the 1 team as far as Chip Ganassi Racing goes. I think Ross Chastain breaks through and gets a top 10 here today at Dover. Now into the must-have list here for today. These are 3 drivers you should absolutely start in your lineup if you have them for your fantasy team. Remember, you can only start a driver up to 10 times this year. Now that we're getting halfway through the regular season, there's probably some drivers you've started a lot more than others, but if you have these guys, you have to start them because they are so good at this racetrack. And we'll start off with the guy who won here the last time he raced here, Kyle Larson, in that number 5 for Hendrick Motorsports. Larson has 6 top 5s in the last 9 Dover races. In the last 6 Dover races, he's led 137 or more laps. He also won the last time he started here, as I mentioned, back in 2019. Obviously, he missed last year due to suspension issues that we all know of in 2020, so he did not run either of the 2 Dover races last year. But again, the last time he was here, he led over 200 laps and won the race, and that was in the playoffs in a clutch situation. One of the most clutchest races I think that Kyle Larson has won in his career. 9 career top 10s in 11 starts at least. He's got 12 career starts, but in the last 11, excluding his first career start at Dover, he has finished in the top 10. The only 3 races he did not finish inside the top 10. He finished 11th, 12th, and then 25th. So really only 1 bad run he's ever had in 12 career starts at Dover. It's a pretty decent sample size. considering they have raced there twice a year, pretty much since 1971 from what I was looking at. So they've been racing there twice a year for a long time. This is actually going to be the only year that they raced there once since then. So very interesting to say the least. Kyle Larson has looked fast, coming off a second place finish at Darlington. I think Larson has been one of the front runners for the championship contenders. If the championship for us today, I think he'd be in it. And this is a great track for him. I expect Kyle Larson to run very, very well. I am going to predict him to finish inside the top 5 and likely contend for the win. So definitely start Kyle Larson in your fantasy lineups. Another driver is Martin Truex Jr., the guy who won last week at Darlington. Truex, again, 3 wins on the season. He's also got 3 career wins at Dover as well, including his first career win all the way back in 2006, but he does have a couple of recent wins there in recent years as well, including the spring race in 2019. Martin Truex Jr. has finished in the top 2 in the last 4 Dover races, and then he has 13 top 10s in the last 15 Dover starts as well. 8 top 5s in the last 9 Dover starts. 2 wins in that stretch. Definitely have to start Martin Truex Jr. He is by far the best driver statistically as far as Dover goes that is currently in the Cup Series. And now that Jimmy Johnson's retired, this could be Martin Truex Jr.'s racetrack. We've been talking about Martinsville or Richmond possibly being his racetrack, but I think Dover is probably going to be that top-tier track for him, at least to continue to contend for wins here in the coming years. He finished second in both races last year in the doubleheader, so I know he hasn't won here in the last 4 tries, but he finished second, so he's been so close. Expect him to at least be close today if he doesn't go to victory lane for a 4th time already in the first 13 races. That would be very, very impressive. High on the radar, much like Kyle Larson. I think he'd be in the championship 4 if it started today. So Martin Truex Jr. is a must-have. And the final must-have is going to be Kevin Harvick in the 4 for Stewart-Haas Racing. Kevin Harvick has 7 top 10s in the last 8 Dover races, and he does have 5 top 5s in the last 6 Dover starts as well. 3 wins, and all of those wins have come since the fall of 2015, so a lot more recently. And with Stewart-Haas Racing in that number 4 car. Kevin Harvick has been performing well. He finished in 6th last week at Darlington, ran top 10 all day. Harvick's had a quiet but consistent season. I know he hasn't won 9 races like he did last season, but he has run consistent this year, and I'm not expecting him to compete for the win, but I'm expecting him to run top 10, be that must-have, score a lot of stage points, score a lot of race points. He is a good pick for your fantasy team, and he did win one of the doubleheader races here last season as well, so he's got that on his side. And now I'm sure what you guys have all been waiting for, my race win pick for today. Spoiler alert, it's going to be one of the must-haves that I have for this week, as it usually is. And those 3 drivers, definitely, again, as usual, also tough to pick from as far as my race win pick goes. The obvious would say to pick either Kyle Larson or Martin Truex Jr. I'm going to pick Kevin Harvick. And this is simply off the fact, yes, he does have great, Dover stats in recent years. Probably the 3rd best Dover stats, again, behind Truex and Larson. But the reason why I'm going with Kevin Harvick to win his first race of the year is because simply statistical reasons of him running well when I go to the racetrack. I've seen Kevin Harvick win 3 times in the 14 Cup races I've seen in person, 13 if you don't count the All-Star race. So he wins a lot when I go there in person. Most of that is at Michigan, but it was at Darlington last year as well. And again, this is a 750 horsepower track. He won at this track last season. I know it's probably a more riskier pick, and usually I don't take the more riskier picks, but I'm going just simply off the dumb luck with that one. And he does have a little bit of stats to back it up. So Kevin Harvick will be my pick to win here today at Dover. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Comment down below your pick, maybe to win, maybe who could be on your fantasy team if you don't mind spoiling that. And remember to join the Fantasy League as well on the NASCAR app or website. Go to Fantasy, sign up using your email. It is free to play. Search for KRC League and join our league here today for more prizes by the end of the season. And again, like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys for a post-race analysis video tomorrow. Thanks for watching.